does anybody here? Would anybody here blame Myles Garrett if at the end of this season he said, "Move me"? Would anyone blame him for that?
No,
I would not.
I wouldn't. I don't know that I would blame him, but number one, I don't think it's going to happen. Number two, I think he wants to see what this looks like with Deshaun.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I think he's excited about having Deshaun and seeing.
But he also knows Deshaun won't be calling defensive plays and he won't be tackling people.
But I think that they know that there will be changes coming. But I'm with you guys. It's a dangerous game they're playing right now, and there's a lot of emotion and frustration on that side of the ball.
Jason, you spent a lot of time in that locker room. Why do you think Kevin Stefanski will not fire Joe Woods?
I think because it doesn't solve anything. Ultimately,
But yes, it does. You talked about it. It lets players know that there's a level of accountability.
I agree.
If nothing else,
I agree. I'm just telling you why I think that they're looking at it as, okay, well, what good is it going to do in the middle of the season? I don't know that they have someone else on that staff who could really hold that role.
It don't even matter.
Everybody
gets 200 yards. They get 200 yards.
I agree with that because look at what the Colts are doing with a play caller who's never called plays before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you don't know until you give somebody the
some
opportunity.
numbers that just jump right off the sheet at you. In his last 25 games, Kevin Stefanski's Browns are 7-16. 7-16.
23 games. 7-16 is 23.
Okay, then it's 7-18.
Yeah, that's even worse.
You can't,
It's bad.
You can't look at a situation that you know is broken and do nothing and have any credibility. You can't. In sports, it's all about adjustments, both in game and in season. And during this season, we have watched this defense do the same thing week after week after week. They're not putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, therefore they're not getting turnovers, and they're not getting sacks. It is the least aggressive defense I think I've ever seen.
Ever.
Did you watch the Bengals-Steelers game yesterday?
did.
Yep.
And I love how both teams dial up blitzes
I didn't know what was going on.
time.
Every play, you had no idea who was coming.
And that's why you have a chance in a game like the Steelers are an inferior team.
Yeah.
They had a chance because of that.
Yes.
They were like, wow, look at that blitz.
And look at you want to talk about adjustments. First half, Steelers got no pressure on Burrow at all. None. But they changed their defense around. They got pressure on him in the second half. You want to talk about adjustments. How about that running play? Burrow's about to hand it off. He sees his running back's going to get crushed.
Yes.
He takes the ball and keeps it himself.
Yeah.
And it's just like and there were a couple times in that game where you saw defensive ends going out with running backs. You didn't know who was going to be where. We get none of that. We saw it against the Bengals.
We did.
That's the only game the whole year we've seen.
That's why it's so frustrating.
Why?
Because the talent is there.
Listen,
they're lacking some talent on defense, no doubt.
But their front seven is deficient in talent. The
Yes,
front
it is.
seven
But
is incredibly
when you
deficient.
have a weakness, if you're a pitcher and teams are hitting 380 off your fastball but 170 off your slider, guess what pitch you're going to throw?
Yeah.
And this team's defense weakness is the interior of the line, and they've done nothing to help have other players help shore it up.
Tommy Togi, I hit the quarterback for the first time in a month, and it was a roughing the passer call.
You're right.
I was so mad.
I thought it was. I had to go back and look because I tweeted. I think that's the first time he's hit the quarterback all year.
I don't like his.
He actually has 2 quarterback hits this year. I looked it up.
Yeah. And by the way, the Browns got lucky too because they had a couple of late hits that didn't get called on the Browns.
They're just. And then the thing here too is, Andrew Berry knew what the game was. What, like you not obfuscated of any blame. You know what your defense is. Everybody in this city talked about it. Your defensive tackles, are we getting them or no? And guess what? You didn't. And so now you want us to go into the offseason and warm your shoulders up. Oh yeah, we're gonna do everything in our power. Nobody wants to come here now. Why, as a free agent, would you come sign up for this stuff? It looked like it was going to change. But now in players' minds, you think when they called Myles Garrett on the phone, they was doing it last year. They was like, oh, hey, you think I should come? Nah, stay home, bro. Stay home. You never get another receiver. You traded for Amari Cooper. You traded for some people.
Yeah.
People ain't trying to come here.
Yeah, but Amari Cooper's having a good year. I mean, it's not like he's not being used.
The receivers are not the problem.
Yeah.
DBJ's having a fantastic year. Amari Cooper's doing fine.
Yeah.
They're going to have a franchise quarterback throwing to them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm saying they went out and traded for those players.
I hear you, G, but ultimately guys signed for the money. Yeah, I mean, all things being equal, yeah, there's other places players would rather go.
Yes.
Ultimately, if you pay a guy, he's going to come here. I don't buy the guys are not going to come here.
If I'm a defensive player, I'm not coming here.
The defensive tackle issue has to be the number one priority.
Yeah, they've gotten it wrong every time.
They signed a guy off the Dolphins practice squad on Monday. He was on the field yesterday.
Yeah.
He's been here 5 days. He's on the field.
That's an indictment on your whole scouting and player personnel.
Well, so let's talk about that for a second, because I'm confused about who really has the key to this organization.
That's a very good question.
I don't know, and maybe you can help me figure this out. I do know that Paul DePodesta is the chief strategy officer. And when you read it in the Browns bio of what it is that he does, without saying it, it says that he is basically providing guidance for the general manager to draft players based on analytical trends within the game. That's pretty much am I hitting that right?
I think that Paul sets up the structure of the organization. I really don't think he has a lot of input. I could be totally wrong on this.
He had no input with Dorsey.
He had no input with Dorsey.
No, I think from reading what it sounds like is he's analyzing trends within the league, and this is just my guess. I don't know because they don't tell us. But it's my guess that Paul looks at what the league is doing and says, we need to be really strong guys at defensive back. It's a passing league.
Right.
So you could see how you could come up with that.
But you don't have to pay Paul DePodesta to tell you that.
Well, here's the problem. They are. And he's been with the Browns for 7 seasons. He's the common link between a lot of GMs and coaches.
True, but a lot of them weren't listening to him at all.
Well,
Hugh Jackson never listened to Paul DePodesta.
Well, then
John Dorsey never listened to Paul DePodesta.
Why was he there?
But I wrote that a couple years ago. Like, they've had this guy in the building all these years, and nobody listened to him. Like, DePodesta wanted Sean McDermott, and they didn't hire him.
Someone's got to be at fault there.
Well, it's Jimmy.
Okay, if you hire a guy and you tell him this is your job and this is what you're going to do, you're going to provide structure and guidance for draft and for player personnel, and they don't listen to him, why was Hugh brought back after an 0-16?
They extended him at 1-31. They gave him an extension after 1-31.
So here's all I can do is look at who's there and how long they've been there. Mm-hmm. And Paul has been there now 7 seasons. And he is a common link. Whether or not the media thinks that they were listening to him or not, we don't know. Sure, you're going to pick up things as the season's going on, but he's there for a reason. And if he's providing information and insight and they're not taking it, then that's on Jimmy.
Yeah.
But one way or another, through 7 seasons, he's been a common link between 4 head coaches and 3 general managers. And the record is 36-62-1.
Jesus.
Okay, so I don't know by any standard if your job is chief strategist officer. It is your job to come up with the strategy.
Right.
And you're 36-62-1, you are fired. And by the way, this 7-year stint with the Browns is his first foray into the NFL. Prior to that, he spent 20 seasons in baseball, where he was widely regarded as the guru of analytics. But when you dive into what his contribution was to those 4 or 5 teams during those 20 seasons, none of his teams ever won a championship.
No.
None of them.
He found out a cute little way so they didn't have to pay no money to nobody.
But here's the funny thing about that. Moneyball was Moneyball to me is one of the biggest frauds of a movie I've ever seen. They talk about Scott Hatteberg, the first baseman who, the normal stats that guys look at, he wasn't good, but he was good here. They never talk about their MVP shortstop in Miguel Tejada.
Well, but that's not DePodesta's fault.
Hold on.
The movie.
No, I know.
Yeah,
Hollywood glorified
and the pitching,
Moneyball.
I know. They didn't
but
talk about the
unfortunately, everybody watched Moneyball and thought, wow, that's the way to do it. They never talked about their ridiculous starting pitching. Ever.
Yeah.
You never hear them talking about their starting pitching. And by the way, they made the playoffs, but they didn't make any noise in the playoffs. The Guardians do that, and they do it with a Moneyball-esque system. But then at the end of the movie, they said, so then short time after this movie, the Boston Red Sox, using the Moneyball system, went on to win the World Series. They didn't use the Moneyball system.
They print money. What are you talking
They
about?
bought 4 free agents and spent $200 million, for Christ's
Yeah, but
sake. That
money-
wasn't the Moneyball system.
Moneyball is. I mean,
I'm just saying, the movie's a fraud.
but the Red Sox. Yeah, the movie. Fine, it was an entertaining movie.
It was.
Yeah,
It was a fine movie.
I enjoyed
It
the
was
movie.
a fine movie. But you know what?
Yes, it was misleading.
The
certainly.
fact that
It was better than draft day.
Yes.
What
Oh
I'm
my
saying,
God.
it was better than draft day.
That trash.
What I'm saying is, I just think that at some point the guy's genius credentials need to be renewed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Paul DePodesta is a genius or not. I have no idea what his influence is or was.
All we know
in
is
the
he's the
organization.
only common thread in the front office.
Besides Jimmy Haslam.
Yeah, well, okay.
Here's the thing I would say. This is the first front office head coach pairing with Paul where they all see it the same way, whether that's good or bad.
Well, it's the 3-7 way.
This is the first time with Paul, Andrew, and Kevin that they all see it the same way.
Well, I'm glad they at least all agree on how to beat 3-7.
Yeah,
Hey, that's fair right now. Now, they have been the only group that's gone to the playoffs in a long time, but it's fair to say right now.
I'm about 4 seconds away from wiping down any COVID wins. These is about to get. It's easy to go out here and play.
COVID wins, we're taking them out.
Yeah, them COVID wins.
LeBron loses his championship.
Listen, that's a COVID win too.
Loses his championship.
Because I mean, how hard is it to play in stadiums with no people?
No, you're looking at it the wrong way. The COVID season is the season when there was no interference and there was no noise, and it was just football. It was just the football people doing football.
Here's what
That
I'll
was
say.
the COVID season.
It's an even playing field. They said show up, play football. We don't even need a preseason. We're going to start today. Now, when we get everybody involved and everybody got to practice and everybody got to go to camp and the Browns are terrible when everybody got to do it. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't see with the core. And I'm about ready to he did not win a playoff game. Can we stop saying that too? Who won that playoff game? Who was?
He was in his basement.
He's in his basement, dog.
I mean, it's facts.
This staff
super
won a
facts.
playoff game.
This
Staff won a playoff game. You're right. He wasn't there.
He wasn't.
He wasn't even in their house. He was in the crib in the basement with us.
Yeah.
Couldn't even call nobody.
Nope.
He was just down there hoping. I hope they run play action. Dang it. I was there. I would have.
I guess
Couch, you
hey,
on?
listen. I guess we'll find out next year, right?
Is Tim with us?